If you're looking for a little bit of inspiration with some of your upcoming Bionicle mocks, then the Bionicle Inspiration series is here for you. We're like a Toa, helping a poor innocent Matoran survive against the evil Makuta. We're here to help you out. And today's episode of the Bionicle Inspiration series, well, it's episode 170, and you know what every 10th episode means? It means a fan-submitted mocks episode, and so that's exactly what today's episode is all about. We're going to cover 10 fan-submitted mocks today, and I've got a good spread. I tried to get a lot of names of people that I've never really put on before, and also I got a few other names of people that you have seen before, but I tried to prioritize people who, to my knowledge, I've not featured before. I've featured a lot of people, so maybe I have featured some of these people before, but got a few people I have and a few people I haven't, so stay tuned and get excited for that. But of course, if you want to see your mocks in future fan-submitted mocks episodes, or just any future BIS episodes, because I'm happy to feature mocks in any episode, really. If you want to see your mock on the show, you can submit it through the email you're currently seeing on your screen, bissubmission@hotmail.com. And yeah, submit some images or any further information that you want to put into an email, as much or as little as you want. It doesn't really matter. Put it in the email. I'll add it to the list, and one day it'll appear on the show. But of course, do remember, I got a lot of submissions to work through, so your patience is key there. But always make sure to shove a bunch in on this episode, so your chances are higher every 10th episode. Anyway, enough rambling. Let's begin. Let's get inspired. Let's look at some Bionicle mocks. The first fan submission we've got today is a really awesome one, actually. It's called Crunch the Magmasaurus, and it's by Sharik. Sharik! That's a great name. And yeah, like I said, this is a great mock. There's something really beautiful about this. It has this really lovely kind of classic Technic vibe to it. It really reminds me of this older Lego Technic set. I remember specifically this would be outside a gaming area in Legoland in California? I don't know. I remember going as a kid, and I remember seeing it and thinking it was super cool. And it is an official Lego set as well, but it kind of gives me some of those vibes, but it's a little bit more Bionicle focused and a little less sort of system or Technic focused, which is nothing wrong with that, of course. But what I love so much about this mock is the fact that it's not really overly armored. You can see a lot more of the sort of more kind of detail-heavy kind of Technic details on this mock. It's not quite greebled, but more of a greebled texture, you know? More of a kind of mechanical, detailed look. And I love that because it's very similar to that Technic dinosaur I was showing before, and there's just something so original and Bionicle about that. You know, nowadays people like to go for a very sort of slim, organic, natural, smooth, curved kind of look, using a lot of Hero Factory pieces and stuff, which naturally have that sort of smoother texture to them. So it's always refreshing to see mocks like this that are not going for that texture at all and are going for a more kind of classic look. It very much reminds me of like Kadok and Gadok, or some of the original sort of first year Bionicle kind of Rahi sets and stuff. There's something about this mock that is so Bionicle, and it's just really nice to see. So it's just really refreshing. I love seeing that sort of stuff. So maybe some of the Bionicle pieces in your collection are not new pieces. They're not the Hero Factory stuff, not Bionicle G2. You've got a lot of older parts. Well, don't be discouraged by that, because there's a lot of beauty in that, and you can cover ground that's not really covered these days as well, which is, hey, if you're looking to be a little bit more original, there you go. So the head design on this mock is fantastic. A very realistic looking dinosaur head for this one here. Just nicely done. The eyes really pop on this mock here. I was talking about this in a Patreon podcast that I recorded the other day, because in some of the Patreon videos I've been doing recently, I've been counting down some of my like top 5 favorite sets from each year of Bionicle sets as they were released. And a lot of the times in my favorites, the reasons that I like some of the mocks always comes back to the eyes of Bionicle sets. You know, there's something nice about the sort of pale blue eyes of Tahu and stuff like that. I don't know what it was, but as a kid, I just thought it was really nice. That beautiful kind of pop of color that really contrasted with the rest of the mock. It just looks nice. I just remember being, as a kid, just loving it. Thinking it was one of my favorite parts of the set. And this is one of my favorite parts of this mock here, is just how nicely those eyes contrast up against the rest of the colors on this mock. So, hey, if you're like me, maybe you can have a lot of fun with the eyes on your mocks to really make them pop, have them contrast with the color scheme, and just look pretty, you know? You can get lost in the eyes of your mocks. I love the tail design on this mock too. I think it's cool because you can more or less see how it's done. It's essentially getting a whole bunch of those sort of smaller waist pieces and then attaching some socket pieces onto them and kind of just essentially just repeating that multiple times and then detailing the waist a little bit as well. It's not too armored, really. It's still sort of bare bone, but that's kind of the aesthetic of this mock, and it looks cool. You get a nice bit of posability out of that, and it's a relatively simple design, so that's easily something you could do if you're looking for a nice tail design here. I also like, too, the big feet on this mock. You know, it might look a bit like he's wearing clown shoes, but I actually kind of like that, too. I think that, again, is kind of very in line with the sort of more classic look to this mock, because I can imagine that might be how the set was designed. But also, there's nothing wrong with having a really strong base of support. In real life, when you're working out, and with Bionicle stuff, having a strong base of support is always a good thing. But it's good because if you are building a larger mock, you know, sometimes you can get stability issues, and so having kind of larger feet can help to really support the mock so that it's you know, it's got a larger surface area to sort of hold itself down and support itself. So definitely a good idea there, something to consider if you're building a larger mock for sure. Not something you have to do, but something that might help. So there you go. That's a fantastic mock with a really classic aesthetic to it that I really enjoy. Let's move on to the next mock, which is called Sting. And I was asked to address this guy as that guy Braylon. So this is by, you know, that guy Braylon. So another awesome mock here. The head design on this mock uses some of the Speedor kind of wheel pieces that came on some Chima sets. A bit more of a unique Chima set back in the day, kind of a bit of a precursor to some of the Ninjago spinners to some degree. They were like those Beyblade style, let them rip, you know, little like bikes that could do like tricks and go through hoops and knock over things and stuff. They were fun. I'll throw a picture up. Ben always likes to not give himself too much editing to do. But you know what? It's nice to see what Ben's talking about. So he's going to Google the image now, and you're going to see it on your screen as I'm talking. Do your work, Ben. Do some editing. That's right. But this is a cool mock. I like that head design. It's a bit more unique. It's a bit more abstract, a bit more different. There's no discernible eyes or mouth on this semi-humanoid kind of looking body here, which, you know, it's always nice to be a bit of a departure from the norm, be a little bit more abstract. That can always be a fun approach. This mock also has a really cool coat design using a whole bunch of Exoforce bad guy robot arms in white. They work pretty well here as this sort of interesting coat, but I also kind of like it as just, I don't know, some sort of like metamorphosis kind of armor, you know? Like, yes, it kind of looks like a coat, but it could also be some sort of interesting thing that kind of just wraps around the general body of a humanoid and protects it, you know? It kind of looks like it sort of ebbs and flows and it's sort of this interesting organic armor or something like that, which is unique and different. You know, that may not be the intent on this, but I also just kind of like that idea. That could be an interesting way of approaching an armor design on a mock that you might have, that it is sort of more flowing and organic, kind of like a symbiote suit from Spider-Man or something maybe. Interesting thought. I also like the curvy and thin limbs on this mock, using a whole bunch of different tail pieces and other kind of body elements that came on different animals and spiders and all sorts of different things across different Lego sets. I don't know, there's something sort of surprisingly like Dr. Seuss about it. I don't know, this sort of more goofy, interesting, funky, thin-limbed looking character. Yeah, it's sort of very cartoon-like. A little bit Dr. Seuss, like I said, and a couple other things as well. It's just different. It's just unique. And I think that's always something that's a good thing to play around with. I spoke about abstract stuff before. It's always a good idea to do that, just to kind of go against the grain, go against the norm. You know, you might have in the past very typically built with just your classic CCBS limbs or prefab Bionicle elements that you would typically find on a NICA build, you know, like the Tora NICA or even some of the Baraki, perhaps, you know? And nothing wrong with doing that, of course, but if you want to be really different, you really want to experiment, you really want to try something different, something new, doing something like this is a great idea, having very, very, very thin limbs that have this interesting curvature to them, this interesting aesthetic to them that's just different and unique. It's certainly a nice approach, that's for sure. It's a good way of experimenting, for sure. If you're someone at the moment who you really want to improve your skills, well, finding different ways of experimenting, finding new ways of approaching something that you may always typically do in one way, finding a new way of doing it that's very vastly different is a great way to kind of just see what you're capable of, really stretch your limits. Something to think about. And this is a great example of how that can work really well, both on the head, even on the coat, but mainly on the limbs. Very nice. Now, this mock here is by Nadir Mocks, and this is his self-mock called Nadir. So the first thing that grabbed me about this mock is the unique kind of almost sort of scarf that he's got going on, a bit of a face mask to some degree, I guess. I guess it's surprisingly topical. But that combined with the Ben 10 headpiece here, which of course has been painted or sharpied or something, probably just painted, to be red instead of blue. And I think these are definitely the most interesting elements on this MOC. I really like them because, this MOC is primarily black, but these little pops of red, I think, really are just a nice little bit of kind of flair, a little bit of something that really kind of grabs your attention, really kind of hooks you in. For example, I was watching a few little behind-the-scenes things with Star Wars. You've got characters like Quinlan Vos, who is a fantastic character. He has, for the most part, he's just a normal dude. But he's got that cool yellow tattoo across his, just sort of under his eyes and across his nose. And it's just a little slight interesting thing that sort of really implants it into the world of Star Wars. It's not just some random human. Now they've got this interesting face tattoo that you wouldn't really see on someone in the real world. What does that mean? What's that, This sort of takes it out of Earth and into a galaxy far, far away. Or, you've got one of the best characters in the sequels. Not in the sequels, in the prequels. I always get those words mixed up. From episode 2 of Star Wars, Elan Sleaze-Bogano. That's right, there is a character called Sleaze-Bogano. Good job, George. But a fantastic character who wants to sell you death sticks. And in the behind-the-scenes stuff I was watching, George was saying that he originally just had the character as he was a normal human, and then in watching it back, he was like, it's not Star Warsy enough, so he added little doodly boppers on his head to give him little weird antenna things, and he's like, it's a little more Star Wars, there you go. So it's that. What sort of little slight thing, whether it's a yellow face tattoo or diddly boppers on the top of your head, what can you do that's just sort of a different, unique thing that kind of adds a bit of flair to the MOC? Whether it's as simple as this, just giving them a different colored scarf and slightly changing up the colors on a MOC, or doing that, adding some sort of weird, crazy thing that just helps to differentiate the MOC in some fashion. That's certainly something you can play around with that can really kind of spice up a MOC, really take it to another level. I'm not saying you have to do that, of course. I don't think there would have been anything wrong with Elan Sleaze-Bogano not having those antennas. He still would have been cool as he went home and rethought his life. But still, a little something like that can go a long way, that's for sure. Never underestimate the power of how cool that can look. And this is a great example of that, because I think that scarf and that really menacing Ben 10 head here, painted red, looks really cool, really makes this MOC pop. He's also got some good old cloth. You know how much I love my cloth on MOCs. This works very well here on this MOC, giving him a nice sort of menacing, cool-looking appearance. But I think the coolest bit is he's got a belt. Check out that belt. It's tying up his ensemble very nicely. But that is actually a cool idea too, characters like Kylo Ren and a few other people, they kind of have a nice belt on their apparel, on their costume, on their clothing, that can kind of make it look nice, tie everything together. I don't know, I'm not a fashionista, I don't know how to describe that, but that's something to consider too, maybe you want to get some thinner official Lego cloth, or you want to play around with, I don't know, just a shoelace or some other thin cloth that you found around the house and tie it on the MOC in some fashion, whether maybe it's like a headband or something like this, just a way of kind of keeping the cloth from moving around too much, and also just tying it all together nicely with a nice belt of some kind. Cool idea. I think it works well here on this MOC. It's a good example of how a belt can tie things together. That's right, I'm talking about fashion on the Bionicle Inspiration series. I didn't expect that to happen today. This is a really cool MOC, really playing very nicely with color and very nicely with cloth. It's got a nice sort of menacing, mysterious appearance to it as well. It's cool. Let's move on to the next MOC. It's by Cone Man, and this MOC is called Julius Verne, and he is a Void Walker. And he says, Void Walkers are people who can manipulate the void to their will. There you go. So this MOC uses the Akimu mask, which I've come to just really adore that mask. It's a fantastic mask. It's got all those sort of beautiful ornate detailings, the sort of almost like hieroglyphics and different words flowing out of its horns. And it just looks nice too. Just the general shape of the mouth and the eyes and everything is cool. It's a great little Bionicle mask. And I think that's a really fitting choice for this MOC too, because naturally that mask is just kind of over the top, very regal. It literally kind of has a crown on the top of it, just the way those sort of appendages and horn things kind of poke out of the top of it. But also with the sort of, hieroglyphics and words and fancy, dancy things on top of it, it's just kind of ornate and kind of pretty, kind of regal. And I think the rest of this MOC kind of fits that very well. There's a lot of system details on the upper and lower arms, whether it's those grill pieces or the different studs and things. And it kind of just starts to make it look like sort of, ornate carved armor with, markings on it and details, the sort of thing you'd see on some rich, pompous knight that maybe isn't pompous, maybe he's just a decorated war hero and he has very expensive regal armor that reflects that. And so it's nice to see those details kind of coupling and accompanying and complementing the mask here. So it's a very nice choice. And too, I also love the kind of broad shoulders on this mock too. Again, like I said, I was getting this vibe of a decorated war hero who has ornate, fantastic-looking armor that reflects his many accomplishments in battle. And these very big, large, broad shoulders also seem to reflect that as well. Just sort of, it gives him this very powerful look. It's cool. I also love, too, these purple wisps of, elemental power kind of oozing out of his arms there. Makes him look powerful and makes it look like he knows some sort of cool magic or some sort of elemental power. It's just a nice, fun little detail and a good way of using some of those trans-purple pieces there, which is cool. So very nice mock. Let's move on to another beautiful mock by my boy Buttloaf Builds, and this is called The Gluttonous. So this one's a really cool one here. I love that there's a lot of kind of symbolism in this mock, and also just fantastic kind of character work on this. Let's break it down. So first off, I love the snakes that appear to be coming out of the ears of this mock. There's a lot of kind of symbolism in that. Of course, this mock seems to kind of be based off, the 7 deadly sins, the sin of gluttony. And I kind of like the symbolism behind the snake. Of course, the snake kind of could be a reference to Adam and Eve and how, the snake was saying, hey, be greedy, eat the apple. Who knows what could happen? It tastes so good. Why not, And so the idea that the snakes are on there could be somewhat reminiscent of that. And then, more of the kind of gluttony is, of course, being conveyed in the sort of more devilish appearance of this, greed being one of the sort of 7 deadly sins that is often associated with more sort of evil characters. So seeing a devil head there is fitting and appropriate. Additionally, too, this very large mouth design here that's kind of been made using some flex tubing that's kind of accompanying a few other pieces there makes for this big open mouth that looks like he's ready to chow down on that human that he is already currently eating. So this very large, almost sort of cartoon-like over-the-top mouth is a great way of sort of representing gluttony and, that 7 deadly sin. It's perfect. So a lot of little different things here, whether it's really subtle symbolism or very obvious symbolism, like a big open mouth representing gluttony, is a great way of conveying that. Another thing, of course, that conveys that is the posing of this mock. The posing on this is fantastic. I love how he's sitting on this rock here, just the way that he's resting, the way that he's posed those pieces there, it looks like he just do not care. He's sitting there and ain't nobody gonna move him until he wants to move, which, again, is pretty fitting for gluttony. Another thing I think that's fitting as well is the sort of large belly he's got, his large bosoms as well. It looks like he's a little bit on the plump side there, which of course seems fitting for gluttony. Yeah, just a fantastic base, a lot of symbolism, and some really fantastic techniques, whether it's using minifigure helmets for nostrils or eyeballs, and just the fantastic shaping on the mouth and the posing and everything. There's a lot of little details here that are really helping to convey the gluttony aspect of this mock, which is, Buttloaf's intent. So well done and well accomplished for sure. Certainly something to consider yourself if you're planning on building a mock is how can, whenever you make a choice in the mock, whenever you place pieces inside the mock, never place a piece unless it has a specific purpose. What can it be communicating? And I think that's certainly something that Buttloaf has done here. There's not a single element in this mock that isn't conveying something, that doesn't have a deeper meaning behind it or isn't helping to convey the message he's trying to show. Now, of course, doing that sort of stuff, that's when you start to get into more sort of complicated building. So if you're not at that stage yet, that's okay. Just build the way that makes you happy, of course. You don't need to be doing that. But hey, if you can start just thinking along those terms, even if you just do 1 or 2 little things that you wouldn't have done before that helps to communicate something in your mock, then that's a start, and that's all you need to do. The more you build, the more you grow, the more you learn, you'll grow and become an even better builder. So something to experiment with, something to think about, because this is, in my opinion, up there in some of the really, really great mocks there, in my opinion. This is a fantastic looking mock that's using a lot of very clever techniques, very clever building principles, a lot of symbolism, a lot of strong character development, and just representation of character, which is not easy to do on a mock. So this is some of the creme de la creme. I can't go follow Buttloaf, guys. He's a really good builder, man, and a new builder too. He's only recently started posting. Good man, good man. Anyway, next mock, from a good mock from a good man into another good mock. Here we go. This is a mock by The Realm of Stars, but he also says his name on Instagram is Miniamoonsky or Miniamoonsk. So there you go. And this is his self mock. He also says his name is Spencer. There's a lot of names on this email. But you know what? A man of many names and a man of many talents. That's okay. I can't actually find a name for this mock, though. So I think the mock is just called Spencer. I'm going to go with that. Just sort of briefly reading through what he said here. There's a big description on this mock here. It's mainly just sort of building points and aspects of the character and all that. But I think it's called Spencer. Anyway. This is a fantastic looking self-mock. And he's in his description here, he's saying there's a lot of different elements on this mock that help to reflect his identity and who he is as a person, which, hey, if you're building a self-mock, that's always a great thing to be doing. That is for sure. Some of the things I really like about this mock is the color scheme. I love the combination of black, purple, and trans green. Those colors just work very well together. I don't know what it is, but they just work. Kind of reminds me of old sort of Transformers Energon Transformers there, and I don't know, it has slight levels of nostalgia for me, but it's not just that I like it because I'm looking at it with rose-tinted glasses. It is just a nice color scheme, so certainly something to think about yourself if you're looking for a good color scheme, because I've had people who've messaged me that before. They're like, hey, what's a good color scheme I could do? And I'm like, purple, black, and trans green. Why not? You know, as we see here, it works well. I also like the wing design on this mock here, using some Chima wing elements and also some of these weird, funky, long black pieces, which some of those came on some of the older Ninjago Dragon sets. They were a fantastic looking piece there that have a lot of different usages. That's the word. I've even seen certain people, including myself actually, but mainly Brendan and a few other builders, they've used them as sword elements, so it's a piece with multiple different purposes. But using those there for wings, fantastic. And also the idea of using mixel joints to kind of hold those up. Mixel joints are very, very sturdy pieces there, like really, really sturdy. So if you're planning on building a wing design, grab some mixel joints, because that way they're not going to become any, kind of too top heavy or not be able to support themselves. Mixel joints can support a fair bit of weight, within reason, of course. So certainly something to consider if your wings currently are not supporting their own weight. Something to think about. But yeah, cool head design, and just a cool looking self mock here. So nice work, Spencer, and a man of many names, as it would seem. Nicely done. Let's move on to the next mock. This is going to be a longer episode, guys. I'm taking my time on these mocks because there's some good mocks today. This one is by Makuta's Descendant, and this is Mercanoid. So I love the head design on this mock, using the stringer, it's from Breakout. Breakout, yes. The Hero Factory wave known as Breakout. The Hero Factory hero known as Stringer, he had some really cool like speaker sound pieces that attached to the Hero Factory armor on his shoulders, I think. Been a while since I've seen that set, but I think it was the shoulders. Regardless though, he had some cool speaker elements. And one of those speaker elements is being used here on the head design. And an awesome little addition about that piece is you can actually attach a 2x2 round dish piece onto that eye there. And you can create some really cool looking head designs like this with it. And it's actually just a really nice head design. Just the kind of natural shaping of that piece kind of it has a lot of different lines that are kind of leading you towards the red eye in the center there, which is cool because that eye looks very menacing as a result. And the fact that it's kind of the bit of trans red on there helps it to really pop. It's just a really nice head design. I also like, too, that all of the yellow is really localized to the top of this mock here. I said before, having a lot of reason behind what you do is always super important, and it can be a great idea. But here I look at this mock and I go, I don't really think there is a reason that all the yellow is focalized at the top there. It's not like it has a deeper meaning or some sort of symbolic message. It doesn't need that. It just looks cool. And that's okay, If something just looks cool, the old rule of cool is always enough, You don't always need to have a deeper meaning behind it. If you want the curtains to be blue, they're going to just be blue, So there's nothing wrong with doing something just because it looks cool, not because it needs to fit into some grand purpose or something, It's cool. But overall, yeah, a really nice mock, a great silhouette to this, and a fantastic head design, using some pieces in some clever ways here too. Nicely done. Let us move on to the man himself. The man, the myth, the legend, Connor Hoffman. A good man here and a good friend. He was a cunning warrior and a good friend. So this mock here is known as Heramus, the great being of conflict, and a Bateria. I'll come to the Bateria in a minute because I love me my Bateria. But first off, this mock is sick. So for those of you who don't know, great beings from the Bionicle canon, the Bionicle lore, if you head over to Biosector, you could read up a bit about them. They're essentially the gods of the Bionicle universe, essentially. Go read up more about them. There's all sorts of cool stuff. Give it a read. It's been a while since I've read it. Maybe you might be like, technically they're not really the gods, but I thought they are. And you'll figure it out. But they're cool. They're cool. Go look them up. Regardless, though, you're building a god. You got to have something that fits that. And I think Connor Hoffman's really nailed that. Why? Why, you ask? Well, he's used a fantastic mask. This is from Vladek, from the Knights Kingdom sets, the Knights Kingdom wave of castle sets. Knights Kingdom was a really cool theme because a lot of people used to call it Power Ranger Knights, because it's kind of what it was. You got these different hero knight characters that were different colors, very similar to Power Rangers. And they had different personalities, and they were named characters, and they went on these mythical, magical adventures, and they fought the evil Vladek. Because it is, this sort of more over-the-top interpretation of Castle, it's not really grounded in, historical reality or anything. It is sort of a more sort of slight fantasy element behind it. Vladek really looked evil. And that was his mask, man. He looked evil. He looked super strong and bad. By the way, of course, I should specify, Knights Kingdom had some system sets, but also had some sort of larger construction-like figures, and some of those masks do fit decently well with Bionicle sets. Or mocks, not sets. And so I think it's really fitting to use Vladek's mask, because it just oozes evil. It has this beautiful grandeur, sort of strong, menacing, evil look to it. It seems very fitting of a sort of, what I would assume here is a more evil, great being. Connor has a fantastic Bionicle storyline. Head over to his channel, by the way. He's another great BioTuber. He posts a lot of how-tos and mock showcases and things, and he also has a fantastic sort of storyline of his storyline that I voiced in, a few other Bionicle people voiced in, he himself voiced in, all sorts of different stuff like that. Be sure to check out his stuff. But yes, he has a whole plethora of story and canon behind his mocks, and I apologize, I have not read it. It is a late recording. I don't have the time at the moment. But I'm going to assume this is an evil great being, just judging from his colors and his look and all that. But very fitting mask for that choice. And, like I was saying, color scheme on this mock here, the black and the dark red oozes evil. Makuta Teridax was a red and black kind of character there. Fitting for a sort of evil-like character here. And the little splash of purple, I think, is also a nice addition, because purple kind of implies sort of king-like elements, a nice regalness. And for a god, I think that's very fitting indeed. But my favorite thing on this mock is this weird, crazy halo thing. You look at a lot of, historical Renaissance, blabby blue pictures of religion and stuff, and you often see saints, Jesus, God, Mary, all sorts of people with halos around their head because they are heavenly people, all that sort of stuff. I don't know the appropriate term that you would use for that. But typically on more sort of religious characters, you do see a halo like that. And so I think this is very fitting on a god to give them a sort of, almost kind of like halo around their head, which I think also kind of doubles as a weapon. Again, I haven't read the story, but it kind of looks like that, which I think is really fitting. So really cool to make the weapon sort of help to accent his great being status, but also it's just a cool looking weapon. And it just looks nice. So that's very fitting, very cool. Also, there's a Bateria in this mock. I love Bateria. They were going to be a set, and then Bionicle got cancelled. But they're a part of the Bionicle storyline. They're like this weird, funky, cool virus thing. Again, very topical. But they were a fantastic looking thing, and that's always at the top of my list of like, what sort of stuff would you love to have seen actually become sets? Bateria. I love Bateria. Go read up on them in the Bionicle wiki and stuff. They're cool. So it's really cool to see Connor make one here, especially using a 3D printed mask. Very nice. All right, let's move on to the next mock, because I'm taking ages to talk about these. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. This is a mock by Mutter Neo Mocks, and it's called Pyrorak the Fire Vaki. So first off, Vaki. You never see enough Vaki. I love seeing a good Vaki. Always cool to see those heads being used, because, man, Vaki heads just aren't used that much. At least not in their entirety. Sometimes you just see the sort of main kind of Vaki head bit, but not the cool, launchy, disc-fiery thing in the eyes and stuff. You rarely see that used in that combination. And it's a cool combination, so good to see that getting some love. I also love the weapon design on this mock, combining the Jala mask, the Malum claws, and the Toa Vakama Hordika weapon pieces like that. That is a crazy cool looking weird claw weapon design. It's rad. It's super cool. So yeah, that's awesome. And I think that's also another cool idea, because weapons can be such a key element on a Bionicle, you know? I remember Gully from her cool hook claws, you know? I remember Tahu from his awesome fire sword, all sorts of stuff like that. So if you want to really focus on an element of a MOC, really make it look crisp and make it look cool, doing that with a weapon like this is a great idea. So maybe make that the focal point of a MOC, because, you know, like we see here, it's what makes this MOC pop. It's what makes it look cool. Let's go to the last MOC now. This one is by Adam Philippe, and this MOC is called Nihilia, Toa of Icy Water. So I was really struck by this MOC. I like its unique sword. I assume that's some sort of 3D printed piece there. It's not an official piece by any means, but it looks cool. Looks really cool. Very nice looking blade. And it does make this MOC, make it look cooler. A good weapon goes a long way, as we were talking about before. But something that I like about this is that it is essentially just an Anika build, you know, using a lot of the prefab, torso, limbs, and other pieces. But that's okay. I don't think that's in any way a bad thing. And it got me thinking, you know, there is nothing wrong with just building an Anika build. You know, I remember I had a fantastic memory. I was hanging out with a friend from school. I brought a whole bunch of Bionicle pieces to his house. He had a whole bunch there as well. And we just sat in his room for like most of the night, and we just built Bionicles. And I think we finished the night with like 5 Anika builds that we made. We made stories for them. We had fun making them, and it was super fun. It was super fun. And what was so cool about that was just how quickly we were able to make them, how much fun we were having. We weren't getting caught up in like, oh, it's got to have, you know, amazing techniques, and I've got to use new colors, and I've got to focus on textures, and da-da-da. Yeah, you know, that's nice if you want to, you know, progress as a builder and, you know, make a MOC that looks fantastic. But, God, there's nothing wrong with just building an Anika build. If it makes you happy, do it, you know? I miss the days, you know? I miss those days where you were doing stuff like that. You're just like, yep, I'm just going to pump out a whole bunch of Anika builds because it's fun, you know? And there's no reason you can't do that now. And there's no reason I won't do that now. I mean, that does sound like fun. I think this is a fantastic example of an Anika build, you know? You don't have to be using advanced techniques or crazy, weird, out there ideas. Nothing wrong with just building a straight-up Anika build. And I think what makes this one shine here is the sort of more slimmed limbs, and even the use of the Hordika leg piece here. It does give it a sort of slight feminine quality to this MOC, and it just works well, man. Just works well. It's a good-looking Anika build. Nothing wrong with a good-looking Anika build. So that's certainly something, your mission going forward, you know? As nice as it can be to focus on advanced techniques and really complex designs and all that. And there's nothing wrong with that, of course, by all means. That's great fun too. But it can also be great fun to just build a miscellaneous, fun-looking Anika MOC, you know? Could be done very quickly. Could be very fun to do. Why not? Might be something to consider at least. Maybe that's not what you want to do right now. That's okay, but maybe it is. Maybe it is, and I applaud you if it is, because that sounds like fun indeed. So there you go. That's been a whole bunch of submitted MOCs in this Fan Submitted MOCs episode today. If you want to submit your MOCs, head over to the start of the episode. I told you how to do it there, but the link, the email is in the description below, so if you want to copy and paste that, you can check it out there. Additionally, there's links in the description to some of my own content. So if you want to see some of the other stuff that I've got going on, check the links in the description for that. And also check the links in the description to some of the MOCs that you saw in today's episode. Because it was a Submitted MOCs episode, you may not see a lot of links because not everyone who submits stuff gives me links, but there are a few links there that you can check out. So see some of the other stuff that they've done. They are talented builders and they deserve a bit of love. Thank you so much for listening though, guys. This has been a Fan Submitted MOCs episode of BIS. Thank you for watching. Happy building. Bye for now.